Will you succeed in getting a debate with Biden, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's not very democratic to not do the debate. I hope that he will debate me, and I can tell you this, and I also hope that he'll come out and campaign, because I'm seeing a vision of America, and both Trump and Biden are boasting about the economic prosperity that they've brought to our country. It's unusual to have two former presidents running against each other. Both of them are proclaiming their economic record. But I'm seeing things in this country that I never believed that I would see in the United States. People living in a level of desperation that I don't know. I've talked about. I have a friend called Keith Amato, who is, and I represented commercial fishermen for almost all my career as an environmental lawyer. And he's one of my closest friends. And he worked hard his whole life, fishing out of Wellfleet and P-Town and Chatham. And his son-in-law now owns a fishing business, but he has no pension, and he's on full disability. He had a lot of injuries and a lot of damage during his life. So he was collecting food stamps, $283 he was getting a month, and it's critical to his survival. Even then, he was telling me, I have to switch recipes to be able to get through the checkout line. I have to buy cheaper recipes and get fillers, etc. And in the last 2 years, the price of food, because to fund these wars that we're funding, they print money, and that means inflation, and that's a tax on the poor. Oh, the price of food has gone up by 38%. The price of basic foodstuffs, chicken, eggs, and milk have gone up 78%. So his food stamps were 78%, less valuable. On March 1st of this year, he got a phone call from a government phone call, robocall. The recorded voice told him that he was getting his food stamps cut to $23 a month, so 90%. 30 million Americans got that phone call. And, that's the same month we ratcheted up our contributions to the Ukraine at 113 billion. And the Fed printed 300 billion unanticipated dollars to pay for the failure of the Silicon Valley Bank. There's lots of money and we began cutting 15 million people from the welfare rolls. Since then, 4 million have been cut. This is on Politico this morning from the Medicare rolls. So there's no money for poor Americans. And the people that I see are living because of the inflation and because of what's happening with this desperation. The average wage in this country is now $5,000 less than the cost of basic goods, of food, transportation, and housing. So half of Americans are making up that gap by putting it on their credit card bills. And this week, we passed $1.1 trillion in credit card debt. That's the first time in history. Most of that, or 330 billion of that, has been in the Biden and Trump administrations. Two men who are saying, I'm helping America. There's $1 trillion in credit card debt, and those people are paying 22% interest. If the Mafia did that, it would be called loan sharking.
Not dischargeable in bankruptcy, by the way.
Right, and it can't be discharged. I'm meeting people who are, couples who are sitting at their dining room tables and trying to figure out how this math works for them, because they can't. They're having to make choices. People in this country are choosing between food and gasoline and food and medicine. And they're listening to a little baby crying in the room next door, young couples, and have to wonder whether that baby is $50 sick or $100 sick or $500 or $1,500 sick before they bring them to a hospital. And my wife and I were talking about it the other night, and we were talking about this epidemic of depression and mental illness and anxiety that is afflicting Americans. The deterioration, the sense that the wheels are falling off. And she said, That's the way I felt when she was living in poverty. She said, that's the way I felt when the engine light came on my car, because I knew there was no money to pay it. And you have all these Americans now who are living hand to mouth, and they do not feel that anybody is listening to them in the political process. They feel they've been completely abandoned by the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and that those parties are now serving elites, and that their voices aren't being heard. And particularly now, the Democratic Party has had this very interesting shift where when I grew up, when my uncle was president, my father was in, the Democratic Party was where the people who were poor and working people were. And today, 70% of the wealth in this country is owned by the Democratic Party and only 30% the Republican Party. The top 10 counties, the top richest counties in this country, 9 of the 10 are Democratic counties. So there is this kind of shift in wealth that maybe is one of the reasons that Democrats do not seem to be talking to or for working people anymore. But the people that I talk to, both through my job of representing them, I'm representing 1,000 families in Columbiana County, Ohio, Eastern Ohio, Western Pennsylvania, Western West Virginia, whose lives were upended by the Norfolk Southern spill. And, they are just living in a level of desperation that I never thought I'd see in the United States. And, my father used to bring us to Southeast Washington. He'd load us in a station wagon and bring us to Southeast Washington to meet people who were poor. Or he'd take us to the Mississippi Delta or West Virginia, to Appalachia or the Indian reservations, and he always said to us, "These are your people." He said the people who are wealthy and the people who have, who are the big corporate leaders and titans, they don't need the Kennedys. They have lawyers and they have PR firms and they have lobbyists. And he said, "These are your people." And he came back from the Mississippi Delta one night, and he said, we were all eating. There were like 9 of our kids in the dining room at that time. And he said, I was in a tar paper shack today. There were 2 families there, and they eat 1 meal a day. And the kids go to bed hungry. And he said, when you grow older, I want you to do something about those people. And that's one of the reasons that I'm running.